Good evening, good afternoon, Corral. It is great to see you today, even if we're just seeing each other on a computer screen or your phone. And I want to welcome you to a discussion regarding Felix Mendelssohn. Um, since we are seeing the last movement of his wonderful oratorio, Elijah, and then shall the light shine forth. I think it's particularly important and interesting to talk about Mendelssohn today because there are so many interesting parallels between what's going on today in the world in terms of one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, and the early Romantic time in which Mendelssohn lived and performed and composed. So, Felix Mendelssohn, he was born in 1809 in Hamburg, Germany, and he died in Leipzig, also in Germany, in 1847. He was a composer, a pianist, an organist, and a conductor. He is one of the preeminent composers of the early Romantic period. His works include symphonies, concertos, piano music, organ music, chamber music for small groups of instruments, and two oratorios, perhaps the most famous of which is Elijah, the piece that we're doing, one of the pieces that we're doing from that oratorio. Um, he had many famous works that have become quite well known. One is the overture and incidental music for A Midsummer's Night Dream. Um, his Italian Scottish Symphony. His oratorios, as I mentioned before, Elijah and St. Paul. The melody for this famous Christmas tune, which I bet you all know, Hark the Herald Angels Sing. That was written by Felix Mendelssohn. Songs without words, the solo piano music, also very famous. So now I want to talk about the early life of Felix Mendelssohn. He was considered a prodigy at a very young age, although unlike Mozart's father, his father did not at all expose him to that kind of, what do you want to say, monopolizing and using your child for notoriety. He was born as a son to a very wealthy man. His father's name was Abraham, and they happened to be Jewish. He had a great deal of influence on him by his father Moses, and we'll talk about that later on. He also had a sister with whom he was very close, Fanny, also a musician, a wonderful composer. And we'll talk about one of these other interesting parallels in that at the time, it was really not considered suitable for a woman to be employed, actually. She was to be at home and to be an ornament on her husband's arm. And so, not until her 40s did Fanny begin to show her wonderful compositions and gain some notoriety for her talents that way. So, life in Germany in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. This is really important to know because context is everything in life. Absolutely. So, it's interesting to notice that at this time, Jews were lobbying for civil rights, civil rights, and there were many demonstrations and many riots at the time. Acts of civil disobedience, as it were. Sound familiar? They attempted to be fully German assimilated. They weren't considered to be true Germans because of their religion, because they were Jewish. Because of this, and because Felix's dad was a businessman, he converted to Christianity. Actually, they became Lutherans, trying to assimilate into this German culture. Also, there was a great amount of influence I mentioned before by Felix's grandfather Moses, who was a major philosopher of the Enlightenment. And I'll talk about those principles of the Enlightenment to which Felix believed and promoted in his compositions. Because Mendelssohn was born a Jew, he was the subject of much anti Semitism. His music was banned by the Nazis, and it was condemned because it was too Jewish, condemned for its Jewishness, whatever that means. And because of that, his music was an obscurity for almost a century. Not until much later, after he wrote these pieces, did he gain the kind of notoriety and attention he should have really gotten. Um, as I mentioned, he converts to the Lutheran faith, and his name, you'll notice sometimes you'll see Mendelssohn hyphen Bartholdy, and that was his Christian name. Interesting enough, Mendelssohn, Felix did not use that hyphenated name, his second Christian name with his name, which I think is interesting. Really important facts about Felix is he was a founder of the Leipzig Conservatory. And there seemed to be two schools of thought in Germany at the time regarding composition. One was a more radical nouveau view that was espoused by composers such as Wagner and Liszt. And then there was a conservative musical inclination, and that was one that was espoused by Mendelssohn and, of course, his wonderful Leipzig Conservatory. Thankfully, as I mentioned again, there became renewed interest in his compositions later in life, and his creative originality has been reevaluated and actually given a lot of praise. He is also known for renewing a wonderful interest in Johann Sebastian Bach, and he himself conducted many performances of Bach's St. Matthew Passion, a brilliant, brilliant piece. If you haven't had a chance to listen to any of those pieces, just click on YouTube and listen to any of them. They're gorgeous. The ending piece in particular, double chorus, is spectacular. So now we're back to Moses and this philosophy of the Enlightenment. So Mendelssohn was a huge proponent of the power of programmatic music. In other words, the marriage of music and words. The music does not stand by itself. It has to be expressive of some story, of the words, if it's a vocal piece. And this is one of the advanced beliefs of the Enlightenment, that it was a holy task. It wasn't just important, it was considered holy to express love, truth, and peace through whatever programmatic music you were going to write. And the themes of reconciliation and brotherhood were always espoused. And that's interesting because a lot of the chorales and a lot of in a lot of Mendelssohn's works had these various thoughts and this very topic of brotherhood and reconciliation. Again, perfect timing for us, is it not, in this day and age in which we live? So the death surrounding Mendelssohn was always considered a mystery because he was only, 36 or something when he died? Very young. Not so young as in your view maybe, but very young in my view. And there was all this gossip about why he died, and much later on, as often happens, they found out that it was some kind of genetic disorder that he had, and that he actually died of hemorrhages due to strokes. And it was, as I said, a genetic disposition of his family, because his sister Fanny, of whom I spoke before, with whom he was so close, also died of a hemorrhage resulting from a stroke. So I can't wait until you listen to this movement that we're doing, and then till the light break forth as the light of dawn breaketh. It's just glorious. And the fugue that ensues, dum bum ba ba bum, how excellent thy name is, again showing his affinity with classical composition and the idea of a fugue, and who was the master of the fugue but Johann Sebastian Bach. So it shows all those wonderful things. I also didn't mention that he chose Elijah, and I think it's interesting. Again, it's no surprise because Felix Mendelssohn born a Jew, and then the family, changed to Christianity. This oratory, Elijah, is based upon the first and second chapter of Kings of the Old Testament, events in the life of the prophet Elijah, who led the way, was the harbinger of the birth of Jesus. It premiered in the Birmingham Festival, and it really is the perfect vehicle for recounting not only just the trial of the Jews, but the anticipation of the Messiah. So I just thought that was really cool that he chose this life, and of which his life was so representative of, at any rate. So, looking forward again to talking to you soon, and I hope you love this piece as much as I do. Have a great day. Thank you.